The blood trickled down Rebecca Jordan's chin as she forced herself to stand, her trembling fingers wiping away evidence of her husband's fury. Through the cabin window, she could see her daughters playing in the yard, blissfully unaware of the violence that had just occurred inside. Rebecca had failed, yet again, to give Thaddeus what he demanded: a son to inherit his ranch and carry on his name, Idaho Territory, 1872. Boys Valley was a place of rugged beauty, harsh winters, and even harsher men. Rebecca had come to this untamed land 5 years ago as a bride of 18, her head filled with romantic notions of Western adventure. Now, at 23, she was the mother of 3 beautiful girls and the wife of a man whose disappointment turned to cruelty with each female child she bore. "Worthless woman," Thaddeus muttered, adjusting his belt as he reached for his hat. "3 times you've failed me. 3, what good are you?" Rebecca remained silent, knowing from experience that any response would only fuel his rage. She watched him storm from the house, mounting his horse to ride into town, likely to drown his frustrations in whiskey at Donovan's saloon. "Mama," 6-year-old Mary called, running toward the house with her sisters, 4-year-old Elizabeth and 2-year-old Catherine in tow. "Look what we found." Rebecca quickly smoothed her dress and pinched color into her cheeks before opening the door. "What is it, my darling?" She kept her voice steady, determined that her daughters would never know the pain that lived within these walls. Mary proudly held up a collection of wildflowers, their delicate purple petals a stark contrast to the girl's dirt-smudged face. "For you, Mama." "They're beautiful," Rebecca said, accepting the gift with a genuine smile. The love of her daughters was the only thing that made her life bearable. "Let's put them in water, shall we?" As Rebecca arranged the flowers in a jar, a distant rider appeared on the horizon, heading toward their ranch. Visitors were uncommon this far out, especially when Thaddeus was away. Rebecca straightened her hair and stepped onto the porch, keeping her daughters behind her skirts. The stranger rode tall in the saddle, his broad shoulders and strong posture evident even from a distance. As he drew closer, Rebecca could make out sun-bronzed features beneath the brim of a well-worn Stetson. "Afternoon, madam," he called, pulling his horse to a stop a respectful distance from the porch. "Name's Samuel Keller. I'm looking for work. Your husband around?" Rebecca hesitated. "He's gone to town. Should be back by sundown." Samuel nodded, his eyes a startling shade of blue taking in the state of the ranch. The fences needed repair, the barn roof had missing shingles, and the corral gate hung precariously from one hinge. Then his gaze shifted to Rebecca's face, lingering a moment too long on the bruise she tried to hide along her jawline. "Mind if I water my horse while I wait?" he asked, his voice softer now. Before Rebecca could answer, Mary pushed past her skirts. "Your horse is pretty, mister." Samuel smiled, the expression transforming his weather-beaten face. "Thank you, little lady. His name is Thunder. Can I pet him?" Mary asked, already moving down the steps. "Mary," Rebecca called, anxiety rising in her throat. Thaddeus didn't like strangers talking to the girls. "It's all right," Samuel said, dismounting with fluid grace. He led the horse closer and lifted Mary up to stroke the animal's velvety nose. "Gentle now, that's right." Elizabeth and Catherine soon joined their sister, their excited chatter filling the yard. Samuel answered each of their questions with patient good humor, showing them how to feed Thunder bits of apple from their palms. Rebecca watched, struck by how at ease this stranger seemed with her daughters. Most men in these parts viewed young girls as disappointments, burdens rather than blessings. But Samuel treated them with the same respect he might show to boys their age. "You have beautiful daughters, Mrs." He paused, waiting for her to supply her name. "Jordan. Rebecca Jordan." She found herself stepping closer, drawn by his kindness. "And thank you, they're my whole world." Samuel's eyes met hers, something unspoken passing between them. "They're treasures for certain." The sound of hoofbeats interrupted the moment. Rebecca's heart sank as Thaddeus appeared, returning earlier than expected. His face darkened at the sight of the stranger surrounded by his daughters. "Get inside," he barked at Rebecca and the girls. "Now." Mary opened her mouth to protest, but Rebecca quickly ushered her daughters toward the house. "Go on, darlings, I'll be there in a moment." Thaddeus dismounted, his movements betraying the whiskey he'd already consumed. "Who the hell are you and what are you doing on my property?" Samuel stood his ground, calm in the face of Thaddeus's aggression. "Samuel Keller, sir. I'm looking for work, passing through from Montana Territory." "Don't need any help," Thaddeus spat, though the state of the ranch clearly suggested otherwise. "Seems like you could use an extra hand," Samuel remarked, his tone respectful but firm. "I'm good with horses, carpentry, and I work hard." Thaddeus squinted at him, calculation replacing anger. Rebecca recognized the look her husband was weighing the benefits against his suspicions. "Pays $3 a week, bunkhouse is behind the barn, first sign of trouble you're gone." Thaddeus jerked his thumb toward the dilapidated structure. "Start tomorrow at dawn." Without waiting for a response, Thaddeus pushed past Rebecca into the house. Samuel's eyes followed him, then shifted to Rebecca, who stood rigid on the porch. "Thank you for the water, Mrs. Jordan," he said loudly enough for Thaddeus to hear. Then, more quietly, "Your daughters are delightful." Rebecca nodded, a mixture of gratitude and fear in her eyes. "Good evening, Mr. Keller." That night, as Rebecca prepared dinner, Thaddeus watched her with narrowed eyes. "Don't think I didn't see the way you were looking at that drifter." Rebecca kept her eyes on the potatoes she was peeling. "I was merely being polite to a potential worker, Thaddeus." "You better remember who you belong to," he said, grabbing her wrist hard enough to leave marks. "And what happens to women who forget?" Rebecca winced but didn't pull away. "I haven't forgotten." Later, after the girls were asleep and Thaddeus's snores filled their bedroom, Rebecca slipped outside to gather eggs she'd forgotten for breakfast. The night air was cool against her skin, offering temporary relief from the stifling atmosphere inside. "Mrs. Jordan." The quiet voice startled her. Samuel emerged from the shadows near the barn, his expression concerned. "You shouldn't be out here," Rebecca whispered, glancing nervously toward the house. "If Thaddeus wakes—" "I saw what happened earlier," Samuel interrupted. "The bruise on your face, it's not the first time, is it?" Rebecca looked away. "You don't understand." "I understand more than you might think." His voice was gentle but firm. "No woman deserves that. No child should grow up seeing their mother treated that way." Tears stung Rebecca's eyes. "They don't see, I make sure of that." "Children know more than we give them credit for," Samuel said. He took a step closer, close enough that Rebecca could smell the clean scent of soap and leather. "Why do you stay?" The question, so simple and yet so complex, broke something inside her. "Where would I go with 3 little girls?" "We wouldn't survive a week." Samuel was quiet for a moment. "I've known men like your husband. They don't change, Rebecca. They only get worse." The use of her given name sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with fear. "Why are you really here, Mr. Keller?" His blue eyes reflected the moonlight. "I needed work, but now I think maybe I'm here for another reason." Before Rebecca could ask what he meant, a cry came from the house, Catherine having one of her nightmares. "I have to go," she said, turning quickly. "I'll be here," Samuel called softly after her. "Remember that." Days passed, turning into weeks. Samuel proved himself an excellent worker, gradually repairing the neglected ranch while maintaining a respectful distance from the main house when Thaddeus was present. But when Thaddeus rode into town, which he did with increasing frequency, Samuel would appear with small gifts for the girls: a wooden toy horse he'd carved for Mary, a rag doll for Elizabeth, a colorful stone for little Catherine. The girls adored him, running to the fence whenever they spotted him working in the fields. Samuel always took a moment to speak with them, to ask about their day or show them something interesting he'd found. Rebecca found herself watching for him too, her heart lightening whenever she glimpsed his tall figure. They rarely spoke alone, but when they did, she felt truly seen for the first time in years. One afternoon, as Rebecca hung laundry while the girls napped, Samuel approached, carrying a repaired bucket he'd promised to fix. "The handle should hold now," he said, setting it down. His eyes lingered on her face, which was mercifully free of new bruises. Thaddeus had been in a better mood lately, the ranch's improvements pleasing him despite his initial resistance. "Thank you," Rebecca said, suddenly conscious of her worn dress and wind-blown hair. "You've done wonders around here." Samuel leaned against the clothesline post. "How did you meet him?" "If you don't mind my asking," Rebecca sighed, hanging a small dress on the line. "My father died when I was 17, left us with debts. Thaddeus was passing through our town in Missouri looking for a wife to take west. He seemed kind then, strong. My mother thought it was a good match." She shook her head at the memory. "The first time he hit me was when I was carrying Mary. He'd wanted a son." Samuel's jaw tightened. "And the other times, after each girl was born." Rebecca pinned another garment to the line. "He says it's my failure. That I'm defective for only producing daughters." "That's not how it works," Samuel said, his voice thick with anger. "Any man with half a brain knows the father determines the child's sex, not the mother, and besides—" He paused, glancing toward the house where the girls slept. "Those children are perfect exactly as they are." Tears welled in Rebecca's eyes at his words. "Yes, yes, they are." Their moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching hooves, Thaddeus returning with a companion, Dr. Wilkins from town. Rebecca quickly wiped her eyes and stepped away from Samuel. "Back to the house, Rebecca," Thaddeus ordered as he dismounted. "Doc's here to check you over." Samuel nodded respectfully to both men and returned to his work, but not before giving Rebecca a concerned glance. "Inside, Doctor." Wilkins examined Rebecca with clinical detachment while Thaddeus hovered nearby. "Well," Thaddeus demanded when the doctor finished. "Why isn't she giving me a son?" Dr. Wilkins packed his bag slowly. "There's nothing physically wrong with your wife, Thaddeus. Sometimes these things just take time." "It's been 5 years," Thaddeus growled. 3 pregnancies, 3 useless girls," the doctor sighed, adjusting his spectacles. "I've told you before, the gender of the child is not the mother's doing. Science is beginning to understand that it's the father's contribution. That determines whether a child is male or female." Thaddeus's face flushed with anger. "That's nonsense. My father had 4 sons, his father had 5. The Jordan men produce boys." "Perhaps," Dr. Wilkins said, reaching for his hat, "but it appears that's not the case for you." He turned to Rebecca. "You're in good health, Mrs. Jordan. Try to rest more if you can." After the doctor left, Thaddeus stormed out to the barn, leaving Rebecca alone with her sleeping daughters. She sat on the edge of her bed, her mind racing. If the doctor was right, if it wasn't her fault. A soft knock on the door frame startled her. Samuel stood there, hat in hand. "Your husband asked me to fix the loose floorboard in here," he said loudly enough for anyone nearby to hear. Then, softly, "Are you all right? I saw the doctor leave." Rebecca nodded. "He says I'm healthy." A bitter laugh escaped her. "It seems it's not my fault after all. The doctor says it's the father who determines whether a child is a boy or girl." Samuel stepped inside, glancing over his shoulder to ensure they weren't observed. "Of course it's not your fault. It never was." "Thaddeus won't believe it. He'll keep blaming me." Rebecca twisted her hands in her lap. "And he'll keep—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Samuel knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "Listen to me, Rebecca. You don't have to stay here. There are places you could go, people who would help." "Who?" Rebecca asked, hopelessness creeping into her voice. "I have no family left, no money of my own." Samuel squeezed her hands gently. "I have a sister in Colorado. She runs a boarding house in a small town called Pine Creek. She'd take you and the girls in, help you get on your feet." Rebecca stared at him, the possibility of escape both terrifying and exhilarating. "Why would you help us? You barely know me." Samuel's eyes softened. "I know enough. I know you're brave and strong and devoted to your daughters. I know you deserve better than living in fear." He hesitated. "And I know that from the moment I saw you, I couldn't look away." A small sound from the doorway made them both turn. Mary stood there, rubbing her eyes sleepily. "Mama, I'm thirsty." Samuel released Rebecca's hands and stood, smiling at the little girl. "Hello there, Miss Mary. I was just checking a loose board for your mama." Mary looked between them, her young face surprisingly serious. "Are you going to help my mama not be sad anymore?" Rebecca felt her heart constrict at her daughter's words. Had she failed to hide her unhappiness even from her children, Samuel knelt to Mary's level. "Would you like that, if I helped your mama and you and your sisters?" Mary nodded solemnly. "Daddy makes mama cry." "I don't like it when mama cries." Rebecca moved to her daughter, pulling her close. "Oh, my darling girl, I'm so sorry." Samuel looked at them both, determination settling over his features. "I promise you, Mary, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure your mama doesn't have to cry anymore." That night, as Thaddeus drank himself into a stupor, Rebecca lay awake, Samuel's words echoing in her mind. Could she really leave? Start anew somewhere else? The idea seemed impossible, and yet the alternative, staying, enduring, perhaps watching her daughters grow to accept such treatment as normal, was unthinkable. The next morning, Thaddeus announced he would be gone for 3 days, traveling to Boise for business with the cattle buyer. "Don't let that ranch hand near the house while I'm gone," he warned Rebecca. "He works the land, nothing more." Rebecca nodded obediently, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. 3 days, would it be enough time? As soon as Thaddeus disappeared from view, Samuel approached the house, his face set with purpose. "This is our chance," he said without preamble. 3 days gives us enough time to reach the railway station at Mountain Home. From there, we can take the train east to Cheyenne, then south to Colorado. Rebecca stared at him. "You've thought this through?" "Every detail," Samuel confirmed. "I've been saving my wages. It's enough for train tickets for all of you. My sister has already been notified to expect you." "You told her about us." Rebecca felt a flicker of alarm. Samuel shook his head. "Only that a woman and her children needed refuge. Laura doesn't need details to offer help." He hesitated. "Rebecca, I know this is frightening, but you have to decide now. Are you coming with me?" Rebecca looked back at the house, the prison it had become. Then she thought of her daughters, of the life they could have free from fear and tension. "Yes," she whispered, then more firmly, "yes, we'll come with you." The preparations were hurried but thorough. They could take only what would fit in 2 carpetbags' clothes, a few treasured toys, the locket containing locks of each girl's hair, and the small amount of money Rebecca had managed to hide away over the years. Samuel had already purchased supplies for the journey and arranged for a wagon to transport them to the station. "We leave at dawn," Samuel told her, his eyes serious. "Be ready. Once we start, there's no turning back." That night, Rebecca sat with each of her daughters, explaining as gently as she could that they would be going on a journey. "We're going to see Mr. Samuel's sister," she told them. "She lives in a beautiful place with mountains and forests. Will Daddy come too?" Elizabeth asked, her small face troubled. Rebecca stroked her daughter's hair. "No, sweetheart, just us and Mr. Samuel." "Good," Mary said with surprising vehemence. "I don't want Daddy to come, he's mean." Rebecca pulled her eldest close. "Life will be different where we're going, better." "I promise." The morning came with a soft rain that would help cover their tracks. Samuel appeared with a wagon just as the first light broke, helping Rebecca load their meager belongings before lifting each sleepy child into the back, where he'd created a comfortable nest of blankets. "Ready?" he asked Rebecca, offering his hand to help her climb up. She took one last look at the ranch that had been her home for 5 years, the site of so much pain and in the births of her daughters, joy as well. "Ready," she said, taking his hand. They traveled quickly but carefully, keeping to less used trails to avoid detection. Samuel was a skilled driver, navigating the rough terrain while keeping the ride as smooth as possible for the girls, who alternated between excitement over the adventure and questions about their destination. "Will there be other children to play with?" Elizabeth wanted to know. "Yes, indeed," Samuel assured her. "My sister has 2 children close to your age, and the town has a proper school." "School?" Mary's eyes widened. "Daddy said girls don't need schooling." Samuel's jaw tightened momentarily. "Your daddy was wrong about a lot of things, Miss Mary. Girls need education just as much as boys do. My own mother was a schoolteacher, and she was the smartest person I ever knew." Rebecca listened to him talking with her daughters, marveling at his patience and gentleness. In him, she saw everything. Thaddeus was not kind, respectful, valuing her daughters for exactly who they were. By nightfall, they had covered nearly half the distance to Mountain Home. Samuel found a secluded spot near a creek to make camp, efficiently setting up a small tent for Rebecca and the girls while preparing a simple meal over a low fire. "You've done this before," Rebecca observed as she helped him arrange their bedrolls. Samuel nodded, his expression growing distant. "I was a scout for the army for a few years, learned to travel light and fast." He stirred the pot of beans cooking over the fire. "And before that, I had my own ranch in Texas, lost it in the war." Rebecca watched him, realizing how little she knew about the man who was risking everything to help her. "You never mentioned that, having a ranch of your own." Samuel shrugged. "It was a lifetime ago. My wife and son died of fever while I was away fighting. When I came back, there was nothing left to stay for." The revelation stunned Rebecca. "You had a family." "Jacob was 4 when I left," Samuel said softly. "Anna wrote that he'd ask for me every day. By the time I got her letter telling me they were sick, they were already gone." Rebecca touched his arm gently. "I'm so sorry, Samuel." He covered her hand with his own. "It was 10 years ago, but I still see Jacob in my dreams sometimes." His gaze shifted to where the girls were playing by the creek. "Your daughters remind me that there's still joy in this world. Still innocence worth protecting." They sat in companionable silence until Rebecca asked the question that had been troubling her. "What happens when we reach Colorado after you deliver us to your sister?" Samuel looked at her, his blue eyes intent. "That depends on what you want, Rebecca." "And if I said I wanted you to stay with us?" The words came out before she could stop them. Samuel's expression softened. "Then I would stay, for as long as you'd have me." The promise in his words warmed her more than the fire. For the first time in years, Rebecca allowed herself to imagine a future filled with something other than fear and resignation. The next day brought clear skies and easier travel. They made good time, stopping only briefly to rest the horses and allow the girls to stretch their legs. By mid-afternoon, they could see the smoke from Mountain Home in the distance. "We'll reach the station by sunset," Samuel said. "There's a train leaving for Cheyenne at dawn." Rebecca nodded, trying to contain her growing anxiety. They were so close now, but still vulnerable. If Thaddeus somehow discovered their plan, if he returned to the ranch early and followed them. "Stop thinking about him," Samuel said gently, reading her expression. "You're almost free." "I won't truly feel free until we're hundreds of miles away," Rebecca admitted. They arrived at Mountain Home as the sun began to set, the small settlement bustling with the activity of miners, travelers, and local residents. Samuel drove directly to the train station, where he purchased their tickets while Rebecca waited nervously with the girls in the wagon. "All set," he said upon returning. "I've arranged for a room at the boarding house across from the station. We'll stay there tonight and board the train first thing in the morning." The boarding house was clean but simple, with Rebecca and the girls sharing one room while Samuel took another down the hall. After settling the children to sleep, Rebecca sat by the window, watching the quiet street below. A knock at the door startled her. Samuel stood there, his expression grave. "We have a problem," he said quietly. "I just overheard 2 men at the saloon next door. Thaddeus is in town." Rebecca's blood ran cold. "Here in Mountain Home, Howe must have changed his plans," Samuel said. "They mentioned he was asking about a tall ranch hand traveling with a woman and 3 little girls." "He knows," Rebecca whispered, panic rising in her chest. "He must have come home early and found us gone." Samuel took her hands, steadying her. "Listen to me. The train leaves at 6 tomorrow morning. We just need to stay hidden until then." "What if he checks here? It's the obvious place to look." Samuel considered this. "You're right, we need to move." He glanced at the sleeping children. "There's an old hunting cabin about a mile out of town. A friend of mine uses it sometimes. We can go there for the night, come back just in time for the train. Rebecca nodded, her mind racing. I'll wake the girls. They slipped out the back of the boarding house, Samuel carrying Catherine while Rebecca held the hands of the two older girls. The night was dark, with only a sliver of moon to light their way as Samuel led them along a narrow trail into the woods. The cabin was small and rustic, but it offered shelter and concealment. Samuel quickly built a fire in the stone hearth while Rebecca settled the girls on a narrow cot, soothing them back to sleep. Try to rest, Samuel told her, standing by the single window where he could watch the trail. I'll keep watch. Rebecca knew sleep would be impossible. Instead, she joined him at the window. I never thought he would find us so quickly. He hasn't found us yet, Samuel reminded her, and he won't. By this time tomorrow, we'll be on that train headed east. Rebecca leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. Why are you doing all this, Samuel? Truly, he was quiet for a long moment. When I came back from the war and found my family gone, I wandered for years. Took whatever work I could find, never staying anywhere long. I didn't care much if I lived or died. He looked down at her. Then I rode onto your ranch and saw you standing there on that porch, bruised but unbowed, protecting your daughters like a lioness. And something woke up inside me. Rebecca's heart pounded in her chest. Samuel, he silenced her with a gentle finger to her lips. I'm not asking for anything, Rebecca. I know you need time to heal, to find yourself again. All I'm saying is that I'll be there however you need me to be. Rebecca caught his hand, pressing it against her cheek. You've already given me more than I can ever repay. You've given me hope. They stood together in the darkness, the weight of unspoken feelings between them, until dawn began to break over the horizon. Time to go, Samuel said softly, moving to wake the girls. The train will be arriving soon. They traveled quickly through the awakening forest, the girls now fully alert and sensing the urgency of their journey. As they approached the edge of town, Samuel motioned for them to wait in the cover of the trees. I'll go ahead and make sure the way is clear, he said, handing Rebecca his pistol. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, take the girls and go straight to the station. The tickets are in my saddlebag. Rebecca clutched the unfamiliar weight of the gun. Be careful. Samuel disappeared into the early morning mist, leaving Rebecca and the girls huddled nervously among the trees. The minutes stretched endlessly, each sound making Rebecca jump. Mama, I'm scared, Elizabeth whispered, pressing against her side. It's all right, darling, Rebecca soothed, though her own heart raced with fear. Mr. Samuel will be back soon. But when 15 minutes passed with no sign of him, Rebecca knew she had to act. Come, girls, she said, lifting Catherine and taking Mary's hand. We need to go to the train station now. They moved cautiously through the outskirts of town, keeping to the shadows of buildings. The station was just visible ahead, steam rising from the recently arrived train. Rebecca quickened her pace, hope rising within her. Then a familiar voice stopped her cold. Going somewhere, wife? Thaddeus stepped out from between two buildings, his face twisted with rage and drink. Did you think I wouldn't find you, that you could just take my daughters and disappear? Rebecca pushed the girls behind her, raising Samuel's pistol with trembling hands. Stay back, Thaddeus, he laughed, the sound brittle and dangerous. You won't shoot me, you haven't got the spine for it. He took a step forward. Now put that gun down and bring my daughters home before I really lose my temper. They're not going anywhere with you, Rebecca said, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. Neither am I, Thaddeus's eyes narrowed. This is about that ranch hand, isn't it? Your fancy man. Well, he won't be helping you anymore. Fear clutched at Rebecca's heart. What have you done to him? Let's just say he's taking a long rest behind the saloon, Thaddeus sneered, taking another step closer. Now give me that gun before you hurt yourself. Rebecca cocked the hammer, her resolve hardening. I said stay back. Mama, Mary whimpered behind her. I'm scared. It's all right, sweetheart, Rebecca said, not taking her eyes off Thaddeus. Go to the station with your sisters, now. They're not going anywhere. Thaddeus lunged forward, reaching for the gun. A shot rang out, but not from Rebecca's pistol. Thaddeus stumbled, clutching his shoulder as blood spread across his shirt. Behind him stood Samuel, his own gun raised, a gash across his forehead but very much alive. "Next one won't just wing you, Jordan," Samuel said, his voice hard as steel. "Step away from them." Thaddeus growled in pain and fury but backed up, his injured arm hanging useless at his side. Samuel moved to Rebecca's side, keeping his gun trained on Thaddeus. "Are you all right?" She nodded, relief making her dizzy. "The girls and I are fine, but you're bleeding." "It's nothing," Samuel assured her. "Your husband's friends thought they could convince me to tell them where you were hiding." He smiled grimly. They were wrong. The train whistle blew, signaling imminent departure. Samuel glanced toward the station. "We need to go. Now." "You're not taking my daughters," Thaddeus snarled, his face pale from blood loss but still defiant. "They're not your property," Rebecca said, finding courage in Samuel's presence. "They're people. Little girls who deserve to grow up without fear, without watching their mother being beaten for something that isn't even her fault." "The law says they're mine," Thaddeus insisted. "The law also says assault is a crime," Samuel countered. "I wonder what the judge would say about those bruises you've been leaving on your wife, or about you sending men to ambush me." A small crowd had begun to gather, drawn by the gunshot and raised voices. Among them was the town marshal, moving purposefully toward the confrontation. "What's going on here?" he demanded, hand on his holstered gun. "This man shot me," Thaddeus said quickly. "He's trying to steal my wife and daughters." The marshal looked to Samuel. "That true?" "I shot him in defense of Mrs. Jordan and her children," Samuel replied calmly. "He was threatening them. As for stealing, no, sir. I'm helping them escape years of abuse." The marshal's eyes narrowed as he took in Rebecca's defensive posture, the frightened children behind her, and the determined set of Samuel's jaw. Then his gaze settled on Thaddeus's angry, intoxicated state. "Mrs. Jordan," the marshal said, addressing Rebecca directly, "is what this man says true? Has your husband been hurting you?" Rebecca hesitated only a moment before pulling back the collar of her dress to reveal the yellowing bruises on her neck and shoulder. "Yes," she said clearly, "for years. Because I gave him daughters instead of sons." Murmurs ran through the gathered crowd. The marshal's face hardened as he turned to Thaddeus. "Mr. Jordan, I'm placing you under arrest for assault." "You can't do that," Thaddeus protested. "She's my wife." "Being a husband doesn't give you the right to beat your wife," the marshal said firmly. He gestured to two deputies who had joined him. "Take him to the doctor first, then lock him up." As Thaddeus was led away, cursing and threatening, the marshal turned back to Rebecca and Samuel. "The eastbound train's about to leave. I suggest you folks be on it." He tipped his hat. "Good luck to you, madam." Rebecca stood frozen, hardly able to believe what had just happened. Samuel gently touched her arm. "Rebecca, we need to go." The train's final whistle shocked her into action. With Samuel carrying Catherine and holding Elizabeth's hand, Rebecca led Mary toward the waiting train, her mind still reeling from the confrontation and its unexpected resolution. They boarded just as the train began to move, finding seats in a nearly empty car. As Mountain Home disappeared behind them, Rebecca finally allowed herself to breathe freely. "Is it over?" she asked Samuel, watching her daughters press their faces to the window in excitement. "Are we really free?" Samuel took her hand, his thumb gently stroking her palm. "Yes, Rebecca." "It's over. Thaddeus can't hurt you anymore." Tears of relief filled her eyes. "I've been so afraid for so long, I don't know how to feel anything else." "You'll learn," Samuel promised. "Day by day, and I'll be there to help you if you'll let me." Rebecca leaned against him, exhaustion and emotion overwhelming her. "I don't know what the future holds, Samuel, but I know I want you in it." The journey to Colorado passed in a blur of changing landscapes, brief stops at dusty stations, and nights spent dozing in their seats while the girls slept curled against them. Samuel used the time to tell Rebecca more about Pine Creek and his sister's boarding house. "Laura's husband died in the same war that took my Anna and Jacob," he explained. "She refused to sell the boarding house they'd built together and has run it on her own ever since. She's tough but kind-hearted. You'll like her." "Will she like me?" Rebecca worried. "A woman running from her husband with 3 children in tow," Samuel smiled. "Laura has a soft spot for those in need. Trust me, she'll welcome you with open arms." Pine Creek, when they finally arrived after changing trains in Denver, was a picturesque town nestled in a valley surrounded by towering pines and distant mountains. Unlike the harsh, open landscape of the Boys Valley, everything here seemed softer, greener, more welcoming. The boarding house stood on the town's main street, a handsome 3-story building with a wide porch and cheerful yellow curtains in the windows. As their wagon approached, a tall woman with Samuel's blue eyes and a practical bun of chestnut hair emerged onto the porch. "Samuel," she called, waving enthusiastically. "About time you showed up." Samuel helped Rebecca and the girls down from the wagon before embracing his sister. "Laura, I'd like you to meet Rebecca Jordan and her daughters Mary, Elizabeth, and Catherine." Laura's gaze was assessing but kind as she looked them over. "Welcome to Pine Creek, Mrs. Jordan. My brother's letter said you needed a fresh start. Please call me Rebecca," she said, suddenly shy. "And yes, we're very grateful for your hospitality." Laura smiled warmly. "Any friend of Samuel's is welcome here." She knelt to the girls' level. "And I have 2 youngsters who have been mighty excited to meet you. They're inside with fresh cookies if you're interested." Mary looked to Rebecca for permission. At her nod, all 3 girls followed Laura into the house, their weariness forgotten at the mention of cookies. "She's wonderful," Rebecca said to Samuel as they gathered their belongings. "Told you so," Samuel replied with a grin. "Now come on, I'm sure she's got a kettle of coffee waiting too." The following weeks were a period of adjustment and healing. Laura gave Rebecca and the girls 2 adjoining rooms on the 2nd floor and refused to discuss payment until Rebecca was properly settled. Samuel took a job at the local livery stable, visiting the boarding house daily but maintaining a respectful distance that both touched and frustrated Rebecca. The girls thrived in their new environment. Mary and Elizabeth started at the local school, coming home each day bursting with new knowledge and excitement. Catherine made fast friends with Laura's youngest, a 4-year-old boy named Thomas who treated her with a protective gallantry that made both mothers smile. For Rebecca, the freedom from fear was both exhilarating and disorienting. She found herself jumping at loud noises, apologizing unnecessarily, and waiting for punishments that never came. But gradually, with Laura's matter-of-fact kindness and Samuel's steady presence, she began to relax, to remember the woman she had been before Thaddeus broke her spirit. She took on responsibilities at the boarding house, first helping with cooking and cleaning, then gradually taking over the bookkeeping when Laura discovered her aptitude for numbers. The work gave her purpose and independence, allowing her to save money of her own for the first time since her marriage. One evening, nearly 2 months after their arrival, Rebecca sat on the boarding house porch, enjoying the cool mountain air after the children were asleep. Samuel joined her carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, settling beside her on the swing. Rebecca accepted the coffee gratefully. "I was just thinking about how different my life is now, how different I am." Samuel nodded, understanding in his eyes. "You smile more." "Stand straighter." "I feel like myself again," Rebecca admitted, "or maybe a new self, stronger." She glanced at him shyly. "Thank you for that, for everything." Samuel's hand found hers on the swing between them. "You did the hard part, Rebecca. You found the courage to leave, to start over." "Only because you showed me it was possible." She turned to face him more fully. "Samuel, there's something I need to ask you." "Anything," he said, his eyes serious in the fading light. "Why have you been so careful with me these past weeks? You visit, you spend time with the girls, but then you always leave." Rebecca took a deep breath. "Is it because you've changed your mind about us?" Samuel looked startled. "Changed my mind, Rebecca? No, I've just been trying to give you space, time to heal without feeling pressured." His fingers tightened around hers. "The last thing I wanted was for you to feel that you owed me something for helping you escape." Relief washed through her. I don't feel pressured or indebted, I feel. She searched for the right word. Cherished when I'm with you. The smile that spread across Samuel's face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. That's because you are cherished, you and those amazing daughters of yours. Rebecca set her coffee cup aside and moved closer to him. Then stop being so careful with me, Samuel Keller. I may have been broken, but I'm mending now, and I know what I want. What do you want, Rebecca? He asked, his voice husky. You, she said simply. A life with you if you'll have us. Samuel's response was to draw her into his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that spoke of tenderness, passion, and promise. Rebecca melted against him, feeling truly safe for the first time in years. When they finally parted, Samuel rested his forehead against hers. I love you, Rebecca. I think I have since the moment I saw you defending your daughters on that porch. I love you too, she whispered, the words both foreign and familiar on her tongue. And the girls adore you, Samuel chuckled. The feeling is mutual. Those three are the treasures of my heart. His expression grew more serious. Rebecca, I want to do this properly. Will you marry me? Let me be a father to your daughters, a husband who honors and protects you as you deserve. Tears of joy sprang to Rebecca's eyes. Yes, yes, Samuel, I will marry you. Their wedding took place the following month in Pine Creek's small church, with Laura standing beside Rebecca and the girls serving as flower bearers, their faces solemn with the importance of their duty. The entire town turned out for the celebration, having embraced the newcomers as their own. Samuel and Rebecca moved into a small house near the boarding house, close enough for daily visits with Laura and her children, but private enough to build their new life together. Samuel continued working at the livery stable while also taking on carpentry jobs, his skilled hands transforming their modest home into a place of comfort and beauty. Rebecca found unexpected fulfillment in helping Laura manage the boarding house's accounts, and eventually taking on similar work for other businesses in town. The independence of earning her own money, of being valued for her mind rather than merely her ability to bear children, gave her a confidence she had never known in her marriage to Thaddeus. The girls blossomed under Samuel's loving guidance. He taught Mary to ride, helped Elizabeth with her reading, and carried Catherine on his shoulders so she could touch the leaves of the tallest trees. In the evenings, he told them stories of his own childhood, of brave pioneers and magnificent landscapes, instilling in them a sense of wonder about the world beyond Pine Creek. One night nearly a year after their wedding, Rebecca found Samuel sitting on their porch staring thoughtfully at the stars. She joined him, curling against his side as his arm automatically wrapped around her. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sensing his reflective mood. "Jacob," he admitted, "today would have been his 15th birthday." Rebecca squeezed his hand. "Tell me about him. What was he like?" Samuel smiled sadly. "Curious about everything, always asking why and how. He loved animals, had a way with them, even as a toddler." He sighed. "I've made my peace with losing him and Anna, but days like today, I still wonder what might have been." "They would be proud of the man you are," Rebecca said softly, "of the father you've become to our girls." Samuel kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for giving me a family again, Rebecca. For trusting me with your heart and your daughters." They sat in comfortable silence until Rebecca spoke again, her voice hesitant. "Samuel, I have something to tell you." He looked down at her, concern crossing his features. "What is it? Are you all right?" Rebecca took his hand and placed it gently on her stomach. "I'm with child." Samuel's eyes widened, joy and wonder replacing concern. "A baby, we're having a baby," Rebecca nodded, tears of happiness blurring her vision. "Dr. Miller confirmed it yesterday. The baby should arrive in early spring." Samuel pulled her into a fierce embrace, his own eyes damp. "Oh, Rebecca, this is wonderful news." She pulled back slightly, searching his face. "You're truly happy, even if it's another girl?" Samuel cupped her face in his hands. "Listen to me. Boy or girl, this child will be perfect. Just like Mary, Elizabeth, and Catherine are perfect, I will love our baby with all my heart, no matter what." The sincerity in his voice washed away the last of Rebecca's fears. This was what love should be: unconditional, supportive, kind. "The girls are excited," she told him. "Mary has already volunteered to help with the baby. She says she's practiced enough with her dolls." Samuel laughed, the sound full of joy. "I bet she has. And I imagine Catherine is looking forward to not being the youngest anymore." "Actually, she's a bit worried about that," Rebecca admitted. But Elizabeth assured her that being a big sister is the best job in the world. As winter gave way to spring, Rebecca's body swelled with new life. Unlike her pregnancies with Thaddeus, when she had lived in fear of his disappointment, this time she felt only anticipation and joy. Samuel doted on her, insisting she rest when tired and bringing her wildflowers that reminded him of the first bouquet Mary had presented to her on that fateful day when he rode onto their ranch. The girls watched her growing belly with fascination, asking endless questions about the baby and how it would change their family. Samuel answered each query with patience and honesty, including them in preparations for their new sibling. On a bright April morning, with mountain wildflowers blooming across the valley, Rebecca went into labor. Laura came to stay with the girls while Samuel took Rebecca to Dr. Miller's office, his face a mixture of excitement and concern. "Everything will be fine," Rebecca assured him, squeezing his hand through a contraction. "This isn't my first time, remember?" "I know," Samuel said, helping her inside, "but it's our first time together and I want it to be different for you." "Better, Doctor." Miller, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, greeted them warmly. "Right on schedule, Mrs. Keller. Let's get you settled and see how things are progressing." The labor was shorter than Rebecca's previous deliveries, perhaps because of Dr. Miller's competent care, or perhaps because this time Rebecca felt safe and supported. Samuel never left her side, wiping her brow, offering encouragement, and holding her hand through each contraction. As dawn broke the following day, their son was born, his lusty cries filling the room as Dr. Miller placed him in Rebecca's arms. "He's perfect," Rebecca whispered, counting tiny fingers and toes. "Samuel, look at him." Samuel sat beside her on the bed, his arm around her shoulders as he gazed in wonder at their child. "He's beautiful," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Just like his mother." They named him William Jacob Keller, honoring both Samuel's father and his lost son. When Samuel brought the girls to meet their new brother, their reactions were everything Rebecca had hoped for: awe, excitement, and instant love. "He's so small," Catherine marveled, touching the baby's cheek with careful fingers. "He'll grow," Mary assured her with the wisdom of her 8 years. "And we'll help take care of him, won't we?" Elizabeth nodded solemnly. "We're his big sisters, that's an important job." Samuel gathered all 3 girls into a hug. "The most important job in the world, and you'll be wonderful at it." As Rebecca watched her family Samuel with his strong, gentle arms around their daughters, the new baby nestled against her breast, she felt a completeness she had never thought possible. The girl who had left Missouri with dreams of adventure had found something far more precious: true love, safety, and a family bound by choice rather than obligation. 2 years later, Rebecca stood on their expanded porch, watching Samuel teaching William to toddle after his sisters in the yard of their new, larger home on the outskirts of Pine Creek. Her hand rested on her again rounded belly, where their second child together grew steadily. "Careful with your brother," she called as Mary and Elizabeth ran circles around the wobbling toddler, causing him to laugh with delight. Catherine, now 5, held his hand, helping him keep his balance. Samuel looked up at her, voice, love shining in his eyes. "Everything all right?" he asked, always attentive to her needs. Rebecca smiled, contentment warming her from within. "Everything is perfect," she assured him, and it was. In the fading light of the Colorado evening, surrounded by the family they had built together, Rebecca reflected on the journey that had brought her here, from fear to freedom, from survival to joy. She thought of the young woman standing on that ranch porch in Idaho, bruised and diminished, and wished she could tell her that someday she would find a man who would love her daughters like they were gold, who would see her strength rather than her failures, who would help her rebuild not just her life but her sense of self-worth. Samuel joined her on the porch, wrapping an arm around her waist as they watched their children play. "Happy?" he asked, though he knew the answer. Rebecca leaned into his embrace, her heart full. "More than I ever dreamed possible." And as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and promise, Rebecca knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged, not as someone's possession, but as a woman fully herself, cherished for all that she was and all that she had overcome.